Hello friends, I'm Priscilla Purl. I'm an avid knitter and vintage enthusiast from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. I love to knit from both vintage and modern patterns to create items that complement my vintage-inspired wardrobe. If you want to see more of what I'm up to, I can be found on both Instagram and Ravelry as The Lavender Pearl. In this video, I'm going to show you and talk about my knitting projects that I finished in 2020. I knit a lot in 2020, so I'm only going to show you the main projects that I finished, and I'm not going to talk to you about each project in as much detail as I usually do. Before we get into that, I want to quickly touch on what a crazy year 2020 was. It was a rough year for everyone for so many different reasons. At the beginning of the year, I was feeling really optimistic and I thought there was a lot of good stuff coming on the horizon, but early on in the year, I got pretty sick. I've been having some health issues for years, but things got a lot worse early in the year and it's still an ongoing issue. Knitting was a huge help in keeping my sanity in 2020 just because I spent so much time in bed, and because of that I got a lot of knitting done. I also started filming YouTube videos a few months ago, and sharing my projects with you brings me such joy. It takes a lot out of me to film, but in the end it feels totally worth it. I just reached 100 subscribers on my channel, and I am so thankful. Thank you so much everyone who's been watching. Hopefully 2021 is going to be a better year for everyone. The first project that I finished in 2020 was the Jailbird blouse by Grrls. I used Knit Picks Paragon in black and white. Paragon is a 50% merino, 25% alpaca, and 25% silk sport weight yarn. It's very squishy and really soft, and it drapes well. I really enjoyed working with this yarn. It was very nice. The Jailbird blouse was a really fun knit, and it knits up really quickly. I love the cap sleeves on this blouse. Cap sleeves are some of my favorites just because they're a little bit cooler than wearing like a longer sleeve, but you still get a little bit of shoulder coverage. I went for a classic look and did the black and white stripes, but you could easily get creative and do different color choices, or you could do it in a solid color as well. I think it would look really cute in a solid color, and then do a contrasting color for the collar and the cuffs. I would definitely knit this pattern again. If I do knit it again, I think that I would use a fingering weight yarn and then hold it double with a mohair. I think that'd be really cute. My next finished object of 2020 was the Beauty School Turban by Grrls. The yarn I used was Cat Sandwich Fibers in Trusty. Their Trusty base is a 75% merino and 25% nylon fingering weight yarn. The colorway that I used was from a one-off batch. Cat Sandwich Fibers calls their one-off batches willy-nilly batches. I knit a Rizzo blouse, also by Grrls, back in 2019, and then I used the leftover yarn to make this turban, so it matches and it makes a really cute set. Cat Sandwich Fibers dyes a lot of vibrant, gorgeous colors, and their yarns are really nice to work with. I'm not much of a toque person, but I really like my knit turban. It's warm and cozy, but at the same time it fits into my wardrobe a little bit better than a toque. I had a lot of fun knitting this project and I love wearing it. I want to knit some more matching sweater and hat sets. The next item that I finished in 2020 was the Half Moon Oracle Shawl by Voolenvine. The yarn that I used for this shawl was the Black Cat Custom Yarns Everyday Sock. It's a 80% merino and 20% nylon fingering weight yarn. The three colorways that I used were Boudelaire, Saphirion, and Demon Hunter. I purchased these yarns from a fiber festival in Vancouver back in 2019 called Knit City. Because of that, I associate this yarn and the shawl that it created with those happy memories from the fiber festival, and it makes it that much more special. Black Cat Custom Yarn is a dyer from British Columbia, Canada, and they dye gorgeous yarns. I am so happy with how this shawl turned out. The colors are absolutely amazing, and I'm so happy with my yarn choices. The colors are even more beautiful in person than they are on camera, and the color palette reminds me of fluorite. This shawl is a very fun knit, and I love the combination of the two-color brioche and the lace sections. Because of the shape of this shawl, it sits over the shoulders very nicely, and it's very easy to wear. My next knit of 2020 was Leftovers by Ffrench. It's a shawl pattern where you hold multiple strands of yarn at once, and as you run out of a strand of yarn, then you add an equivalent sized strand of yarn in its place. It creates a gorgeous marled effect, and it's really easy to fade your shawl that way. I used a combination of leftover yarns from different projects that I've made and some mini skeins that I had hanging around that I had no idea what to do with. There's some Black Cat custom yarn that was left over from my Half Moon Oracle. There's some cat sandwich fibers and knit picks and a bunch of other different kinds of yarns in my leftovers. Luckily, I mostly knit in red, purple, blue, and black, so it was easy to put together a color palette. I held together 4 strands of fingering weight yarn at a time, but it's a pretty flexible pattern and you could use different weights of yarn as well. This was my first time doing a scrap project just because this was the first scrap project pattern that really spoke to me. After this pattern was released, when I went to bed that night, I couldn't think of anything else. So when I woke up the next morning, I started digging through my stash right away to try and put together some colors. I had a ton of fun knitting this shawl. It's a really easy pattern, but I couldn't wait to see how it was going to look each time I added a new color. This is one of my favorite shawls, and I feel like it looks more planned than an average scrap project. My next project was actually a scrap project as well. I knit the Summer Secret Crop by Jessie May Designs. I mostly used yarn that was left over from my leftovers shawl. It was a combination of cat sandwich fibers and knit picks. I held 2 strands of fingering weight yarn together at a time, and as I ran out of a yarn, I added a new strand just like I did with the leftovers shawl. This is the first crop top that I've knit, and I really like the high neckline on it. I had a lot of fun knitting this top, and I love that it matches my shawl. My next finished object of 2020 was the Sweetheart Bomber by Grrls. I used the Subculture Yarn Superwash Merino DK in Dolphin 38 and Grey Goose. It's a 100% Superwash Merino DK weight yarn. I've used Subculture Yarn a few times now. They are local to me on Vancouver Island in Canada, and they dye beautiful yarn, and it's a joy to work with. Once I had my colors planned out, I contacted MJ with my ideas. She sent me back some options and then dyed a sweater's quantity for me. I consider this bomber to be one of my bigger knitting achievements of the year. There was a lot of firsts, like pockets, snaps, and tubular bind-offs, but luckily it was explained well, so it wasn't too difficult. I talk a bit more about this bomber in a different video, so I'll stick the link up top so you can watch it afterwards if you're interested. I am so happy with how this project turned out, and I love wearing it. My color choices were fairly subdued, but it makes it a lot easier to wear. One day I might knit a more colorful Sweetheart Bomber. In 2020, I knit 2 Boardwalk blouses by Grrls. I like the pattern so much that I knit a second one just a few months after finishing the first. It's not unusual for me to knit a pattern more than once, but it is unusual for me to knit one again so soon after knitting the first. My first Boardwalk blouse was knit using Subculture Yarn's BFL base in Inky Deep and Grapezilla. It's an 80% BFL and 20% nylon fingering weight yarn. I bought this yarn from Knit City, Vancouver in 2019 as well. I love this yarn, and the dark blue and dark purple are exactly my taste. The stripes of the blue and purple look super cute in person, but unfortunately there isn't enough contrast there for them to show up that well on camera. My second Boardwalk blouse was knit using Knit Picks Diadem in Sapphire. It is a 50% alpaca and 50% silk single ply fingering weight yarn. It's really cozy and soft and has a nice halo when knit up. Unfortunately, this yarn has been discontinued. I bought mine a few years ago and it sat in my stash for a while until I figured out what to do with it. I feel like this was the perfect project for this yarn. I knit this Boardwalk blouse a little bit longer than my first one just because I didn't want my midriff to be exposed when I lift my arms. With it being a cozier yarn, I want to be able to wear it in cooler weather. This is a really fun top to knit, and it's a pretty simple knit as well. I would recommend this top for both beginner knitters looking to knit their first garment as well as more experienced knitters. I would definitely knit another one day. I also knit the Joanie Boatneck by Poison Grrls in 2020. I used Sandnes Garn Sisu for this project. Sisu is an 80% wool and 20% nylon fingering weight yarn. I used 4 colors. I used navy, dark blue, rhododendron, and natural. I was going for a nautical look when I chose these colors, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. Sisu is one of my favorite budget-friendly yarns, and I use it a lot. I like it because it comes in a wide range of colors and it wears really well. This was actually my first raglan-shaped sweater, and now I'm hooked. I love the cables in between the raglan increases and down the sides. I've seen so many fun color combos for this sweater. You could easily get creative and make a totally unique sweater. It was a really fun knit, and I definitely recommend this pattern. After that, I knit the Love Witch sweater by Disco Stitch. I modified my sweater to be a dress. I used Sandnes Garn Duo and a lace weight yarn held double. Sandnes Garn Duo is a 55% merino and 45% cotton DK weight yarn, and I used black. It's super soft and it's really nice to work with. The downside to this yarn is it didn't turn out to be as black as I was originally picturing. It's more of a charcoal color. Because of that, I purchased a dark black lace weight yarn and I held it double with it. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce the name of the lace weight yarn, so I'm just gonna have to put it on the screen. It is a 100% merino lace weight yarn. Both yarns worked up really nicely together, and I love the speckled fabric that it created. I talk about this project in a lot more detail in another video as well, so I'll be sure to stick that up top as well. This is a fantastic pattern. It looks super fancy, but it's not that difficult, and it's really well written, so it's easy to follow. I had a lot of fun experimenting to turn mine into a dress, and I feel like I learned a lot about garment construction. I wrote out all the modifications that I made to turn mine into a dress on my Ravelry project page. I'll have a link to that below, but if you're unable to use Ravelry right now, you can always send me a message and I can send that to you. I based my modifications off of the size that I knit and my body, so you likely wouldn't be able to follow it exactly, but if you're looking to do a similar thing, it might help you. I want to knit another one day, so then I'll have a sweater and a sweater dress. I am all about statement sleeves. Next, I knit the Baudelaire crop by Skeinanigans. I used Sandnes Garn Sisu in black for the body and white for the collar. As mentioned before, Sisu is a 80% wool and 20% nylon fingering weight yarn. This project was a lot of fun and it knit up pretty quickly. This pattern uses a larger needle size than most fingering weight sweaters that I have knit, so it made quick progress, and I love the drape of the fabric. I will also add a link above to a video where I talk about this sweater more. This pattern is really well written and easy to follow. There's options for a full bust adjustment, bust darts, or just straight down. There is also instructions for short sleeve or 3/4 sleeve. I did the bust darts and short sleeves for mine. I also knit mine a little bit longer, so it's not quite a crop. This pattern has a detachable Peter Pan collar. To keep my collar in place, I did a hook and eye closure in the center of the collar, and then I sewn a button on the back of the neck of the sweater itself, so it could be looped into the collar and hold it in place. I'm really happy with how mine turned out, and I love wearing it. There are lots of different possibilities for color combinations for this pattern. I did a very Wednesday Addams look for mine, but if I knit another one, I would do a navy blue and forest green. My last finished object of 2020 was the Dottie cardigan by Poison Grrls. I used Sandnes Garn Duo in marine and Drops Kid Silk in black held double. Duo is a 55% merino and 45% cotton DK weight yarn. I used it on my Love Witch sweater dress as well. It's a really soft yarn and I love knitting with it. I could definitely see myself using this yarn again in the future. Drops Kid Silk is a 75% mohair and 25% silk lace weight yarn. It's a nice budget-friendly mohair and it gives a nice halo. These two yarns held together create a gorgeous dark blue and black speckled fabric, and they are so soft. I think this was one of my favorite knits of the year. I talked about this project in more detail in my last video, so I would definitely recommend watching that if you want to hear more about it. I'm in love with this sweater and I could just go on and on about it. It was a very laid back knit, but my cardigan turned out super cute. Even though I chose inexpensive yarns, my Dottie looks and feels super luxurious. It's the perfect vintage inspired cardigan to dress down with some high-waisted pants or dressed up, layered over top of a dress. Because of the relaxed fit of the arms and the body, it resembles dolman sleeves, and I love dolman sleeves. If you are thinking about knitting a cardigan this year, I would definitely recommend this pattern. That isn't everything that I knit this year, but it's the majority of what I finished. I finished the knitting of my black mock neck beauty school sweater by Poison Grrls before the end of the year, but I didn't finish the blocking and the weaving in of the ends. I'll have it completely finished and I'll talk about it more in my next video. I also still have my vintage skirt project on the go. I only have a couple rounds left of the body, but I read ahead and realized that the waistband was actually crochet, so I've kind of put it aside for now to figure out how I'm going to finish it. I'm trying to decide if I want to learn a bit of basic crochet and finish it as per the pattern, or if I want to maybe just keep knitting a little bit longer and then make it wide enough that I could stick a waistband in and fold it over and just sew it down. If you have any tips on finishing the waistband of a knit skirt, let me know. I hope you've enjoyed my knitting recap of 2020. I'm really hoping that 2021 is going to be a better year for everyone. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel. It lets me know that there's an interest for my videos, and by subscribing, it'll make it easier for you to find my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.